Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink. It is time for some Path of Exile 2 discussion. I wanted to give a really quick update on the character that I've been playing in Path of Exile 2 so far. I do not claim that this is a perfectly optimized character, although it is certainly more optimized than the character that I had originally planned. And that's because the character I originally planned had a little bit of a flawed assumption underpinning it. That was that it was based upon the data mined passive tree, and that was a little bit wrong in a couple of places. The main difference was that for the witch specifically, this area of the passive tree is different to what was data mined. What that meant was that I'd ended up thinking, oh cool, there's a whole bunch of good elemental nodes that I'll take here. That's my plan. I'm going to go through that way. I'll path that way, and that'll be my solution for getting out of the starting area of the tree. Well, it turned out that that was not an option. So that was easily enough solved. Instead of pathing out the way that I'd originally planned, instead path out through practice signs, then through the critical hit chance side of this cluster, and then we're back to exactly where we wanted to be. Basically means we lose about 1 passive point worth of power overall, because there were some pretty nice nodes in this cluster in the original data mine tree, but those were never really an option for us. Other than that though, it's been really interesting to notice that the pressure on life recovery has been extreme. A lot of the bosses in Path of Exile 2 are very good at hitting you for survivable but painful amounts of damage. Quite often, you'll find that a character with 660 maximum life, like I have at the moment, will get hit for between 300 and 500 damage. Now, this is not something that's imposing any real outright one-shot risk of you, but it is something that is very dangerous if you don't immediately heal to full through the use of a life flask. Well, guess what? You've only got a limited number of life flask charges, don't you? So this creates a little bit of a difficult scenario in combats where you have to find some source of life sustain that is renewable. Now, the first option is just simply to try and burn the boss down before your life flask runs out. There's nothing wrong with this being the strategy of some people. The other strategy is to try and find various defensive layers, whether it be recoup, whether it be something else entirely, in order to try and mitigate some of the damage that's coming in, so that you can then survive that and then proceed to go and beat the boss up. Or alternately, you can get leech. There's a whole bunch of things you can do. Anyways, the thing that's been really noticeable is that the damage incoming has been higher than expected, and that's put a bit of a premium on some of these more passive approaches to gaining health, things that don't require flask charges, things that just happen without you taking an active action for them. So if you're playing a different build to mine, I would encourage you to try and fit in some of these sorts of mechanics. Also, it is absolutely sublime to be able to freeze enemies at the moment, and if you can't freeze them, the ability to inflict some sort of other nerf to their combat capacity, whether this be through the use of the chill mechanic, whether it be through the use of the pin mechanic, whether it be through the use of the electrocute mechanic. There's lots of choices you've got. But you want something that's able to nerf monster effectiveness in combat, because otherwise those monsters are going to be effective against you. The other thing that's really telling is that gear is a bit stingier than I think a lot of us were expecting coming into Path of Exile 2. There have been the stories of people getting 6 or 7 Exalted Orbs during Act 1, and whilst that does happen, it is not the norm. Most of the time people are getting 1 or 2 during Act 1, and then a similar number during Act 2. Now what this means is that you're running around with a lot of 3 and 4 mod rare items. This item is a bit of an outlier, it's my worst item, but things like this is a 4 mod rare. It's not really a good 4 mod rare, it's just that I don't have anything better than it. This is a 4 mod rare. Again, not particularly good, it's certainly better than the amulet is, but it's something that's functional, it gets the job done, it makes my character better than it would be without it. Now, if Exalted Orbs were as common as people were saying before League started, then this would be a 6 mod rare, and chances are one of the other mods would be complete trash, but maybe the other mod would be good, and then we'd end up with something that was meaningfully better. Add that across a whole bunch of different slots on the character, and suddenly you're looking at a fair bit of power boost. But that's not the way it is. Instead, we're making do with rubbish, except in the weapon slot, where weapons have been quite good. Rolled weapons, they don't often drop rare, but when they do, they're quite good. What I want to do is give you a little bit of a heads up as to where to get gear upgrades if you're looking for them. And it's pretty simple. Spend gold on the vendors that allow you to gamble for it. You most of the time will get trash, but some of the time you'll get something good. And the most important item slot for character power is the staff slot, And I think the second most important is probably the amulet. The problem is that gambling for amulets is extremely expensive. So focus on getting those weapons. They're just really, really ridiculously good. And then additionally, look at your worst piece of gear all the time and just look for things to upgrade that. But the main other thing that's been telling has been that learning boss patterns has been really, really important. I have definitely died a lot of times to bosses, not because the bosses have had some massive haha got you mechanic, but because the bosses have had some mechanic that feels fairly fair, at least feels fair once you understand it, and it's also something that is really, really difficult to work out on the fly on your first attempt. I think this is a really bad environment to play in hardcore on, but people who are playing in hardcore, they know what they're in for. They've made a choice to opt into that silliness. Anyway, what this means is that I think the most important thing you can do is try to build into your character some sort of rapid burst life recovery. There's a bunch of things it can be, but it just needs to be there. In terms of gems, I'm continuing to experiment, and I don't think that there's anything wildly out of line with what I'd originally planned there. Just that I am continuing to experiment, and there have been some things that have impressed me. For instance, it's been fairly impressive using Orb of Storms in conjunction with Arc, but not something that's so good that it makes me want to abandon the original plan of being Tri-Ailment, Tri-Ailment. I'm going to leave it there. This is just intended as a quick update. May your Varlorbs have interesting results, and I will see you around.